Let's start with a missile that most of you already know pretty well. You know the American AIM-9B, the worst infrared missile in War Thunder. It's super slow, very short ranged, only pulls 10 Gs, and just generally sucks in every way. It's a total joke, basically a drop tank that doesn't carry gas. Now, did you know there's a radar-guided version of that missile called the R3R that is otherwise identical? Literally a straight-up clone. Now, watch me hit this maneuvering target after launching that missile from 10 kilometers away. And then watch me snipe this other guy from over 10 kilometers away while he pumps chaff. You can use the same basic principle I'm using here to make any radar missile perform like it is on crack. And with Fox 3 missiles coming out soon, you're gonna want to know how to do this, because this same totally broken BS will apply to Fox 3 missiles, and you will get seal clubbed so hard if you don't understand this. Hello! I am Aoyolaipe, and I like to hop into top tier matches in War Thunder, and then personally kill the entire enemy team by myself. Welcome to my channel. Now, I know what you must be thinking. Okay, those had to be some crazy lucky pot shots in the intro. You can't do that reliably, right? So here, watch me snipe this poor guy from 6 kilometers away using the counterfeit AIM-9B, and then turn around and snipe him again from 9 kilometers away once he respawns. The poor guy wants to fly bombers today, and it's just not happening for him. Then I use that same 10G missile to kill his entire team, plus the entire teams of those 2 people I sniped in the intro. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, Aoyolaipe, this is some sort of arcade mode BS. The missiles have to be modeled differently or something, because there's no way an AIM-9B knockoff can even go that far and realistic. So okay, let's quickly test out a custom match, and yes, it can hit someone from 10 kilometers away at launch. Yeah, that thing you probably thought was impossible 5 seconds ago? Yeah, here's me doing it right here on video. It took us 1 try. If your target doesn't see that AIM-9B clone coming from 10 kilometers away, and who would, then yes, it can totally hit them. Now imagine if you could do that with a missile that is hard to dodge. The principle that makes all of this possible is a quirk of geometry, not a glitch in the coding. So it applies to all game modes. This is something that cannot be patched, you are stuck with it. So yeah, it's time for another fun episode of Aoyolaipe ruins War Thunder using math. I don't usually make these sorts of guides so close together, but Gaijin decided to rearrange my schedule, so lucky you, here we are. Oh, and if you're wondering why the Soviet tech tree has a radar-guided version of an American infrared missile, the answer is that some poor AIM-9B went on this like wacky Cold War misadventure where it got sold, stolen, or bartered through multiple countries until the Soviets reverse-engineered it, and then they slapped radar guidance on it. Other than the guidance, it is literally the same missile. Oh, and just for sake of brevity, when I say all-aspect missile in this video, I'm actually going to be including both radar and all-aspect infrared missiles. Believe it or not, the same basic concept I'm about to discuss will apply to both, so I might as well give you 2 guides for the price of 1, right? As I said, it's your lucky day. If that annoys you, then I guess you'll just be annoyed then. Oh well. Alright, so let's break out those protractors and quite literally plot the demise of our enemies. The first key thing to understand is actually pretty straightforward. If you fire at a target moving directly towards you, then your target speed is essentially added to the closing speed of your missile because the target is flying towards the missile. That's good for you, that makes it easier to shoot the target down. It improves the practical performance of your missile. If you fire at a target moving directly away from you, the opposite happens. It gets subtracted because the target is flying away. That is bad for you. That makes it harder to shoot down the target. This is already reasonably well known in the War Thunder community. In fact, you've probably heard people say, you know, it's better in a head-on or whatever when talking about a missile, and, you know, how much can this really matter? It's a frickin' missile and missile goes burr, right? Good question. It could range from being important to being utterly game-breaking. Let's take that R3R, that's the AIM-9B knockoff from earlier, which is an extreme example. If you launch one of these missiles, your target will usually be going somewhere in the general ballpark of roughly approximately half as fast as your missile. The exact numbers get very complicated because, you know, rocket science, but approximations are just fine to illustrate the key concepts well enough to play a video game. So if you fire this really slow missile from your enemy's 6 o'clock position, your speed and range for all practical intents and purposes will decrease by 50%. If you instead fire from the 12 o'clock position, which really needs a cool name like Midnight Strike at Noon or something like that, then it increases by 50%. Slap that into a calculator and oh look, there's a 300% difference. And that's why a frickin' AIM-9B can snipe people in the face from across the map. the geometry supercharged your missile. As a reminder though, this is an extreme example. The faster your target is traveling, the more clock positions matter. But the faster your missile is traveling, the less clock position matters. So if you are shooting a slow missile at a fast plane, which is what I'm doing with the R3R here, then clock positions will determine your missile's practical performance more than the stats card will. If you have one of those missiles and your mindset is missile goes burr, then your missile is barely going to work. However, if you instead took the R2070R, which goes very fast and has a really long range, then your clock position still matters quite a bit, but it does matter a lot less. We'd be talking about double-digit changes, not triple-digit changes. So if your mindset is missile goes burr, then it'll still work. You won't get the most out of your missile, but it will work and you will still kill people with it. Now, if you have an all-aspect missile with medium-ish speed, such as the AIM-9M, AIM-9L, R60M, stuff like that, clock position will still affect your missile's speed and range quite significantly, but most of the medium-speed missiles are infrared, and those have some unique considerations I'll get to in just a minute that turns all this geometry stuff into more of a trade-off than an absolute good. The exact numbers for AMRAMs are still a bit fuzzy and subject to change, and again they're situational to begin with, but the performance gap in terms of closing speed and closing range will probably fall within the high double digits or potentially the low triple digits, but probably the high double digits for most shots. And remember, the clock is a sliding scale. Attacking from your opponent's 12 o'clock is incrementally better than attacking from the 11 o'clock, incrementally better than 10, if you are purely talking about speed and range. Okay, so how do you actually use this, right? As you might have noticed, some of the best clock positions to juice the most performance out of your missile are also the easiest clock positions for your opponent to flare or notch your missile. That means especially with infrared missiles, every shot you take with an all-aspect missile makes some sort of trade-off between reliability, performance, and surprise. Explaining how to use all this angle stuff is a bit awkward because it's such a big topic. Clock positions are just a fundamental part of using all-aspect missiles effectively, but so few top-tier players truly appreciate how important they are. That being said, in broad brushstrokes, if you're using radar missiles, you will generally be exploiting this principle to get a range increase. The speed tends to be secondary, and also to get better at selecting targets. A guy 6 kilometers away that's flying towards you is probably going to be an easier kill than a guy 4 kilometers away flying away from you, that sort of thing. And that goes regardless of whether your missile has active or semi-active radar homing. With regards to infrared missiles, well, to be perfectly blunt, you get to turn yourself into a menace who runs around handing out buckets full of surprise missile deaths to random people who don't deserve it. This is what a noob might refer to as missile spam. You're able to nail people from ranges and angles they just didn't know they had to check for, so just take them by surprise. Paying attention in top tier is hard, and it's in your interest to make it even harder for your opponents. I have wacky killstreak videos coming up soon on the Karnas 2000 and the Kafir C7, and I'll go into more detail about how to do very, very dirty things with all-aspect infrared missiles in those videos. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you subscribe and ring the bell, you won't need to remember how to spell Aoyolaipe next time you want to watch one of my videos.